Me and my friend Annie were about 22 or 23. We were both at uni in different cities at the time. When we were kids, her family and mine used to go hiking and camping every year, and through high school and uni, Annie and I kept up the tradition. We did bits and pieces of the West Highland Way every year for a catch-up, take some climbing shoes, and hang out for a bit in the wilderness. We usually do it at the start of the summer. This summer, we're pretty snowed under with work and exams and couldn't find the time, but eventually we got the spare days that we needed. It was mid-October. I was hesitant about heading right up into the highlands that late in the year, and said that we should just miss it. She laughed at me and told me to grow a pair. So, October it was. You don't really argue with Annie. We ended up meeting at a train station about halfway up, aiming for a 3-day hike. To be honest, I was kind of excited, even though I knew it'd probably suck. I really loved Annie, and I miss her when she's away. I saw her purple waterproofs, and she dropped her bag and we hugged and started walking, chatting away about life, etc. Now, Scottish weather is very bad. I don't know if anyone has been there in winter, but it sucks, especially in the year. It gets dark by about 4 PM, and it chucks it down all the way every day. Apart from the days when it's moody and overcast and crappy, or it's snowing. We've got a Scottish word for it, derrich, dark, bad weather. I mean, you can't see a thing, everybody's miserable. So now it's absolutely pouring down, and in the end we just given up. By the time we met at the station, it was about 10 AM, and we forgot it got dark early, so by the time the sun had set, we'd only gone about halfway to the place we usually stop at. We hiked along a bit further until I had enough and told her that I wasn't up for going any further, and I'd be cool if we just camped. "Annie," I said, "put the tent up, I'm soaked." "I don't care." So we shoved the tent up on the first flat bit we found. We stumbled around in the darkness and eventually got in. The next morning, we wake up and we find out that we pitched our tent in the bog and about 2 feet from the burn, and everything was soaking wet. On top of that, we were miles and miles from the next train station, so we pack up, raging, kept going. We discussed it a bit more, and in the end decided to head for a bothy bit we knew was nearby. At least it had a shelter. If you don't know what a bothy is, it's basically an open shed thing that you can sleep in with a bunch of other hikers, get to know the folk, and importantly, not have to worry about the wild camping. Also, it's free, so you're not stung by hotel prices. So we pick up the pace a lot and don't really go and stop for food or anything. Having left by 9 AM, we get there by 3 PM when the sun starts to set. It's dark and a bit groggy, but there's nobody else there, so we feel like we've scored. So by the time that we've had dinner and played some cards, we're both exhausted. I'm just so glad to camp anywhere that's dry. I just unpack my sleeping bag and jump in. Annie does the same. Sometime in the middle of the night, I wake up to Annie having a seizure. It's not a big deal, it happens a lot, so I don't need to call an ambulance. I just jump out of my sleeping bag, undo hers so she doesn't hurt herself. I sort of cushion her for a bit with my fleece, keeping an eye on her. She gets over the worst of it, and she's laying there quiet while I'm talking to her as she comes round. At this point, I glance up and notice that sometime after we'd gone to bed, somebody else had come into the bothy. There was a dark red bundle of sleeping bags in the corner and a rucksack. And Annie's fit had woken up whoever was in there. This guy come over to us. He seemed nice enough and genuinely worried about her. "You need any help?" he said. I don't get a chance to look over at him because I'm juggling making sure that Annie's okay and making sure this guy doesn't call mountain rescue. "No, she's okay. Happens all the time. She's medicated and things just happen. She'll be okay." "You sure?" "Aye." honestly. Cheers for the help, but we can't really do anything. He then comes closer and he starts, quote, helping. Not in a way that immediately alerts me, but in an annoying way. For example, he immediately tried to put her into the recovery position, which I've already done. And even though I told him hundreds of times that I've known her since I was 5 and know what I'm doing, he didn't care. He's breathing really heavy, and he smells a bit mouldy. Eventually, I just tell him to back off and give us some space. He then smiles at me, which was weird and really creepy. Now this guy's definitely off. It looks like he's been here forever. He's got a massive beard and a weird accent. Kinda Scottish, but something else as well. I thought maybe he was an oil rigger or something. I've met a few in Aberdeen, and he seemed to fit the bill. His eyes were really, really dark. His face was so pale that it made him look tanned. Who the hell is this hiker? Why is he up in this weather this late? And who the hell gets to a bothy at 6 PM? He then moves closer again to look at Annie. Then I tell him more firmly that I've got her and I don't need help. I feel like I'm being a bit mean, but I'm starting to get stressed out because I can't see properly. Also, Annie's been out of it for ages. I mean, it's getting on 15 or 20 minutes now. It should not take this long for her to come round. Usually it's half the time. Also, I realise her eyes are open. It's not unusual, but 90% of the time, she doesn't do this. Then I notice she's looking at me, not zoned out or anything, actually looking. It takes me a few seconds to realise, but she is. She then whispers to me, "Lauren," hardly moving her lips. She doesn't react or anything. She's looking right at me. Don't react. I don't know why, but I'm so scared I just do as I'm told. Now people can hallucinate after having fits. I think maybe she's doing the same. Part of me thinks that, but the other part of me realises that she's now staring over my shoulder, where the red sleeping bag man is. I go to slowly turn around, but she grabs my arm. I'd put her in the recovery position, but from where she's lying, she's able to squeeze my hand without moving a lot. I freeze, just keep looking at her, keeping my voice normal. Now at this point, I really don't know what else to do, to keep talking to her saying like, "Annie, it's me, can you hear me?" All of them things. Then, her eyes flicker back to me and she whispers again. She's basically mouthing it. If I didn't look at her, I wouldn't have known what she was saying. "Lauren, ask him for help. Don't panic." Okay, really weird. I'm really scared now. So I slowly let go of her and turn around. I'm now finally able to see what she's looking at. The red sleeping bag man has been sitting in the corner watching us, smiling the whole time. Only now, there's something in his hand under his jacket. I thought he got out climbing gear with him, but all I can see is a rope and no harness or anything. It's not climbing tape he's got. It's a massive roll of something darker. He's just staring at us waiting. I don't know what else to do, so I move an inch or so away from her and look this guy right in his eyes. "Hi, sorry mate, can you give me a hand? She's not waking up. I'm really scared now." He doesn't move. I can feel my voice tremble, not acting or anything. I'm genuinely terrified. I then remembered from before when he was helping me that he kept on trying to touch her hair and stuff. In a moment of panic, I asked if he could move her hair out of her face so I could check if she is still breathing. I don't know why. I'm not as smart as she is, but I've seen too many crime thrillers and sort of assumed it's a psychological thing. Maybe he liked that she was being vulnerable. Whatever, it worked. He gets up, dead slowly, and moves towards us. He puts his hand on her hair and starts smiling, really slowly. I can hear him breathe now. It's really scaring me, especially when he leans in closer and says, "You're gonna be my favourite." Annie has her eyes closed now. I put my hands in hers. Then I can feel it. She's squeezing. Not like calm down, it's okay. Squeezing steady. 3, then 2, then 1. And at 1, she opens her eyes and swings for him at the same time I do. Punches him right in the throat. And from where I'm sitting, I can get him square in the groin. She decks him again. I automatically grab his rope. He's not exactly going down without a fight, but between us, we've got our hitchhiking sticks, massive boots, elbows, and a lot of adrenaline. We then get him tied up in about a minute, and we grab our stuff and get outside as fast as humanly possible, and then do something that I never thought I'd see Annie do in her life. Call mountain rescue. They come get us in about an hour, and then we get to the town where we give a full statement to the police. A few months later, we found out that they let him go. He didn't actually do anything to us. According to the police, there was no evidence of him trying to hurt us, and there was no evidence that he was going to use the tape for malicious purposes, or cause any other assault or harm to us. This is the worst part because I can't imagine what would have happened if we didn't get as lucky as we did. Even if Annie hadn't had a seizure, he would have definitely attacked us in our sleep. I am 19 years old. I've been a Boy Scout all of my life. I recently turned 19, so I cannot unfortunately be a Scout anymore. I've become an Eagle Scout at a relatively young age, 17. Me and a few of my friends have been in our troop since we were 11. We went through the rankings together, and all of our experiences revolve around each other. We grew up in a rural area in New Jersey, so we loved the outdoors. Camping, hunting and fishing was our life. One of my friends, Luke, asked me and my other friends, Mark, Nick and Owen, if we wanted to go and hang out in a hunting reserve in Pennsylvania. His uncle owned 8 acres of woodland full of lakes and streams. Now, he invited us for a 4-day-long camping and various other activities trip. Since we were all into that stuff, it was all set. We drove out on a Tuesday night, and it took about an hour and a half to get there. Once we got there, we got to a wooden cabin that Luke's uncle owned, and that he let us use. He unlocked it. Now I have to say, it was nice. It had a toilet, stove, lights and other goodies. It wasn't a full outdoor and camping experience, but it was close. We brought a cooler with some drinks and we were set. It was nice. It was like it used to be, us sitting around a fire, just talking. At about 12:30, we went to bed. The following day at about 6, Luke woke us up to go fishing. We grabbed our gear and went to the lake. It was a cold morning, but still pretty nice out. The sun was beginning to rise, and the sky was turning blue. It took us about 5 minutes to get there. We spread out, I picked up my rod and went out for a few casts, so we were all about 15 yards apart. The lake is very large, you can barely see the other side. I was casting and Nick muttered, "What the hell?" I turned around asking him what was wrong. He then pointed diagonally across the lake from where we were, and we see a faint figure standing. It looked rather tall, but I couldn't make out much else. I then looked back at Nick and called Luke, Mark and Owen back. We showed them, and it just kept standing there. We slowly walked back away to the cabin, forgetting almost entirely about it, playing cards and listening to music. It was about 1:30 p.m. We were hungry. We went out back to the little charcoal grill. We put some burger patties on and brought out the grill. We fired it up and Owen, being the best cook, made them. The rest of us were joking around and hanging about, when we heard some crunches from the wood surrounding the cabin. Everybody stopped and looked. Over at the tree line, about 10 yards away, we can see a person who was hiding behind the tree line. Like, he was very tall. I mean really tall, probably 6'8". We were trying our best to stay calm, but when it turned its head, we lost it. It was pale and has black messy hair and a weird expression on its face. It looked like it was a mental patient. It was wearing very baggy and worn clothes. Luke ran back into the cabin, grabbing his uncle's Remington 1700 hunting rifle, firing in the air, saying, "Get away." We heard leaves crunching. He bolted. By then, we all wanted to get the hell out of there. Luke wanted us to give it one more shot, so being the good friends we were, we told him that he was crazy. He was pretty much begging us, so we said yes. We went into the woods for some hunting and just to observe nature. We figured it'd be good to get a break from cabin life. Maybe about 2 hours later, after getting away, we headed back to the cabin. When we were there, the cabin door was wide open. Luke was shocked and said, "You saw me lock it, right?" We said yeah, as he made a big deal out of the whole thing. We were armed, so we raised our weapons and walked in. Inside, the place was ransacked. Most of the food and beer was gone, a few personal items weren't there, and there was a note on Luke's bed. It only had 4 words on it. It said his uncle's full name and Luke's full name. That was it. We grabbed our stuff, hopped back into the car, and got the hell out of there. Now the most off-putting part of this is that how the hell would this person have known Luke and his uncle's name? I'm in fear he knows mine and all the rest of us. I really hope nothing else comes from this. This happened to me when I was about 13. So me and my grandparents were extremely close and had been through all kinds of things together. So my grandfather is outdoorsy, the kind of person to say get off your phone and get outside. And he pitched the idea to go camping in early August 2017. I was kind of excited because I don't really get outside as much as I should, and I loved the idea of spending some time with him. That being said, we weren't going true camping. He wanted to go into the woods I told him about with a nearby campground that we could go to. He was still thrilled, so we embarked on our weekend journey. Just let me paint you a picture. Our campsite was a dead end aside from the one side to ours. It was right near the lake. It was beautiful, but to our dismay, we had people right beside us. We did all the camping things, made fire, swimming, even telling each other spooky stories around the campfire. So we hit the sack at about 10 PM because there was not much else to do. As soon as my head hit the pillow, it started. The crunching sounds of leaves around our campsite. We didn't think anything of it at the time because the night was young. Some idiots were setting off fireworks anyway. Hell, even our neighbours were still laughing. I fell asleep. 11 PM is when it started to get weird. The party was still on, but our neighbours shut up. So the crunching of the leaves didn't make any sense. It was consistent, so my guess is that the noises were footsteps. No one needed to be on our campsite, especially not at night. It didn't make sense. My grandpa was very on edge at the time too. We're both feeling very paranoid. I then wake up again and check my watch. It's 12 AM. It started raining. The water is splashing against the rocks and the thunder in the distance is quite loud. Even with the sounds of rain on the side of the tent, you can still hear the footsteps and whatnot. The unsettling nature of the situation starts to eat away at me. I wasn't scared, just creeped out. Sleep overcome me though it didn't come easy. Now a crack of thunder did eventually awake me again. There was a full-blown thunderstorm now. I felt relieved as I thought the footsteps stopped, until I heard the thump of wood. I didn't know how the person did it, but it was very hard and loud, and they were 2 very distinct knocks, followed by 2 large splashes. God, this is terrifying. That's my only thought as the footsteps continued. I stayed there still for about 2 hours. 5 AM now. Daybreak is near, though my heart nearly exploded when I heard somebody trying the zipper to the tent. I then saw the outline of 3 fingers being dragged across the tent. My body shut down as they come closer and stepped towards a fabric. They brushed against my head. Now every nerve in my body told me to scream, but I didn't. I was terrified. The hand trailed away and eventually became quieter and quieter. I went to investigate. The ground was turned up from the mudstorm, but there was lots of boot prints everywhere. Easy to say that we dipped the hell out of there after that. After that, nothing come of it, but we never went out again camping since. Can you just imagine knowing that somebody's walked in circles around your campsite for 8 hours straight? In my town is a stretch of road down a valley along a river. It's a gorgeous drive, probably only 15 miles, until it dead ends at a nature centre and there's lots of trails to hike. And people spend a whole weekend camping out there at a time, fishing and hunting. Call service does cut off about halfway there though, but I drive that road all the time. It's a good drive to take while my infant naps in the car. My toddler likes to look for all kinds of wildlife along the way. There are a few houses along the way, mostly tucked up the side of a mountain hidden in the trees, but we usually pass a few people along the road out for a jog or walking the dog. So one morning, the baby falls asleep in the car, so we take a drive to the nature centre and back, looking for a moose or an eagle. It's about -6 Fahrenheit. The roads are kind of icy but not too bad. When we get to the dead end, we turn around and head back towards town. When about a mile down the road, I see 2 people walking along the shoulder. Not unusual. It's a pretty morning, but as I get closer, one of them jumps out into the middle of the road frantically waving me down. I slam on the brakes. Because of where she is standing, I very nearly slammed into her. I finally managed to stop. Now the way she flagged me down, I thought one of them had maybe gotten hurt, with no cell service or anything. I then opened my window a little bit, and 2 of them ran up to the car. The guy hung back, just behind my blind spot, which immediately made me nervous. I couldn't get a look at him. Red flag number 1. But the lady come up to my cracked window and said that their car had broken down and they desperately needed a ride. Now I hadn't passed another car along the road. That was the second red flag. I explained that I had my kid in the car, so I had no room, nor was I comfortable having strangers with my kid. This just made her angry. I offered to call them a cab or an Uber, but she refused both of them. Then she just started trying to open my car door, which thankfully was still locked. The guy behind my car started yelling and cursing at me. I just said sorry and drove off. As soon as I drove far enough to get a signal, I called the non-emergency police line to let them know about the stranded hitchhikers. Turns out, the police were looking for them because one of the homeowners along that road had found them sleeping in his car. They were trying to get back into town to disappear before the cops found them. The cops never found them though. I kind of brushed it off. That's until a week later while watching the news. They're on a feature story because they're a husband and wife. The husband murdered the wife and tried to frame it as if she'd just fallen and tripped down the stairs. There's no doubt in my mind that if I let them into my car, they would have successfully forced their way in and would have killed me too.